I remember the exact moment I knew I was going to die. It wasn't when the first gunshot rang out across our village. It wasn't when I saw the flames consuming my neighbor's house. It wasn't even when they kicked down my door and dragged my family into the street. It was when the man with the scar pressed the barrel of his AK-47 against my forehead, and I felt the metal, cold, final, resting between my eyes. He asked me a question. A simple question. 3 words that would determine whether my children would grow up with a father or become orphans before sunrise. Are you Christian? My mouth was dry. My heart was hammering so hard I thought my ribs would crack. I could smell the gun oil. I could smell the smoke from burning houses. I could smell my own fear, thick, suffocating, choking me from the inside. Behind him, I could see my wife, Grace. She was on her knees in the dirt, her hands tied behind her back. Blood running down her face from where they'd struck her. My daughter Mercy, only 8 years old, was clutching her mother's dress, her whole body shaking. My son Emmanuel, 12 years old, tried so hard to be brave, but I could see the terror in his eyes. And little David, just 6, covering his ears, squeezing his eyes shut, whimpering. The man asked again. Louder this time. More impatient. Are you Christian? I opened my mouth. No sound came out. My throat had closed. Every fiber of my being was screaming at me to lie. To say anything else. To say I was Muslim. To recite whatever words they wanted. To do whatever it took to save my family. Just say no. Just deny it. Just this once. God would understand. Wouldn't he? He would forgive me. He forgave Peter. He could forgive me too. But then I heard another voice. Not from outside. From somewhere deep within me. Quiet. Steady. Unshakable. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And I knew. In that instant I knew. There was no escaping this moment. There was no lying my way out. There was no bargaining with evil. This was the moment everything had been leading to. Every Sunday service. Every prayer. Every verse I'd memorized. Every testimony I'd heard. It all came down to this. One question. One answer. One chance. The man cocked his gun. The clicking sound echoed in my skull like a judge's gavel. Last time I ask? Are you Christian or do you want to live? My lips moved. I heard my own voice, steady now, clear, cutting through the chaos and the screaming and the gunfire in the distance. Yes. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. And if you kill me tonight, I will wake up in His presence. Time stopped. Everything went silent. Not the silence of peace, the silence of held breath, of suspended judgment, of a sword hanging by a thread above your neck. He smiled. Not a happy smile. A hunter's smile. The smile of a man who'd heard those words before and knew exactly what came next. Then you and your family died together, he said. He turned the gun toward my son. My wife screamed. A sound I'd never heard from her before. A sound no mother should ever have to make. The sound of watching your child about to be executed. That's when everything changed. That's when the impossible happened. That's when God moved. My name is Samuel Adeyemi. I am 43 years old. I am a farmer from Kaduna State in northern Nigeria. 2 years ago, I should have died. My wife should have died. My children should have died. We didn't. What I'm about to tell you is the truth. Every word of it. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to exaggerate. I'm here because I made a promise to God that night. If He let me live, I would tell everyone what He did. This is that story. This is how God saved me from Muslim terrorists who came to wipe out every Christian in my village. This is my testimony. Before that night, my life was ordinary. Beautifully, perfectly ordinary. I grew up in Umwanrini, a small farming village about 40 kilometers from Kaduna City. The population is maybe 800 people. Maybe less. We didn't count. Everyone knew everyone. That's the kind of place it was. My father was a farmer. His father was a farmer. I became a farmer. We grew maize, cassava, yams, groundnuts. The land was good to us. Not rich, but we never went hungry. We had enough. I married Grace in 2005. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, still is. We had 3 children. Emmanuel, born in 2008. Mercy, born in 2012. David, born in 2014. They were my entire world. Everything I did for them. Now, you need to understand something about northern Nigeria. It's predominantly Muslim. Maybe 70–80% Muslim. The south and east of Nigeria, that's where most Christians live. But in the north, in states like Kaduna, Kano, Sokoto, Borno, we Christians are the minority. In my village, out of 800 people, maybe 150 were Christians. The rest were Muslim. And for many years, this wasn't a problem. We lived together. We worked together. When my Muslim neighbor's son got malaria, Grace helped nurse him back to health. When the mosque needed repairs, some of us Christians donated money. When our church was building a new Sunday school block, Muslim youth came to help carry blocks. That's what people don't understand about Nigeria. We weren't always at war. There was a time, I remember it clearly, when religion didn't mean death. I served as a deacon at Deeper Life Bible Church. Small congregation, maybe 150 members on a good Sunday. Our church building was simple: cement blocks, zinc roof, wooden benches we built ourselves, no air conditioning, just fans that barely worked. But when we worshipped, when we lifted our voices to God, it felt like heaven came down. Every Sunday, I would wake up at 5 a.m. I'd prepare myself. I put on my best shirt. I only had 3 good shirts, but I kept them pressed. I'd wake the children. Grace would have already cooked breakfast. We'd eat together. Then we'd walk to church as a family. That walk was my favorite part of the week. 20 minutes through the village. The sun is rising. Birds singing. My children holding my hands. Grace humming hymns. Everything was right with the world. I remember one Sunday, little David asked me, "Papa, why do we go to church every week?" I told him, "Because God is good to us, son. We go to say thank you." He thought about it for a moment, then said, "God must really like thank you, because we say it a lot." I laughed. Grace laughed. Emmanuel and Mercy laughed. That was 2 months before the attack. 2 months before everything fell apart. If I had known then what was coming, would I have done anything differently? Would I have left? Would I have run? I don't know. Maybe ignorance was a mercy. Maybe God shielded us from the knowledge of what was ahead because we couldn't have carried it. All I know is this: those were the last peaceful days of my life. The changes came slowly. So slowly that at first, we didn't notice. Like a pot of water on the fire, you don't see it boiling until it's too late. It started around 2019. News reports. Attacks on Christian villages in Plateau State. Then Benue. Then southern Kaduna. Places we'd heard of but never visited. Distant enough that we told ourselves, that's far from us. That won't happen here. The reports were always the same. Midnight raids. Entire families were slaughtered. Churches burned. Villages emptied. Survivors fleeing with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The government would release statements. "We are investigating. We are deploying security. We will bring the perpetrators to justice." Nothing ever happened. Then the Fulani herdsmen in our area started changing. The ones we'd known for years, peaceful nomads who would graze their cattle and move on, they began to leave. New faces arrived. Younger. Harder. Heavily armed. They would ride through our farmlands on motorcycles, sometimes 10, sometimes 20 at a time. They'd let their cattle trample our crops. Deliberately. When we tried to stop them, they'd laugh. When we threatened to report them, they'd pat their guns. "Report to who?" they'd say. "The government? Go ahead. They work for us. My neighbor, Mr. Joseph, confronted them once. Told them they had no right to destroy our harvest. They beat him. Broke his arm. Left him in the field. When we took him to the police, they wrote a report. That's all. Just a report. No arrests. No investigation. Nothing. These are just criminal elements, the police told us. It's not religious. Don't make it religious. But we knew. Deep down, we all knew. Pastor Joshua called an emergency church meeting. It was a Wednesday night. The church was packed. People were afraid. Brothers and sisters, he said, I need to be honest with you. I've been speaking with pastors from other areas. The attacks are getting closer. We need to be prepared. We need to be vigilant. And above all, we need to pray. Some people wanted to organize a vigilante group. Others wanted to appeal to the government. Some said we should leave the village entirely. Pastor Joshua shook his head. This is our home. We don't run. We stand. And we trust God to protect us. I believed him. I trusted him. We all did. 3 weeks later, Pastor Joshua was dead. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The clearest warning came on a Sunday in early December. A man stumbled into our church during service. His name was Brother Philip. He was from Gora village, about 15 kilometers away. His clothes were torn. His face was covered in soot and blood. He collapsed at the altar. The worship stopped. Everyone rushed to him. When he could finally speak, his words came out broken, gasping, haunted. They came, last night, motorcycles, guns, they surrounded the village, they went house to house, they asked everyone, are you Christian or Muslim? He started crying. Weeping. His whole body was shaking. My wife, my daughter, they killed them, they burned my house, they burned the church, everyone inside, I only escaped because I hid in the bush. The church went silent. The kind of silence that feels heavy, oppressive, suffocating. Pastor Joshua knelt beside him. Prayed over him. Then he stood and addressed us. This could happen to us, he said. His voice was steady, but I could see his hands trembling. I won't lie to you. We are in danger. But we will not live in fear. We will continue to worship. We will continue to gather. Because the God we serve is greater than those who come against us. We sang that day. But the songs felt different. Desperate. Like we were trying to convince ourselves more than praise God. After service, I pulled Pastor Joshua aside. Should we leave? I asked. Should we take our families somewhere safe? He looked at me for a long time before answering. Samuel, he said, if we all leave, who will carry the light? Who will be the church? We can't abandon this place. We have to trust God. I nodded. I went home. I told Grace what Brother Philip had said. She didn't say anything at first. She just held our children tighter. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Grace breathe beside me, listening to my children sleeping in the next room. I prayed. God, please protect us. Please don't let what happened to Brother Philip's family happen to mine. I didn't hear an answer. 23 days later, they came for us. December 23, 2023. 2 days before Christmas. We were decorating the church for our Christmas program. The children were rehearsing their nativity play. My son Emmanuel was going to be Joseph. He was so proud of his costume, a simple brown robe Grace had sewn for him. Mercy was playing Mary. She kept adjusting her blue veil, asking if she looked like the mother of Jesus. Little David was a shepherd. He had a toy staff we'd carved from a tree branch. Around 9 p.m., we finished decorating. Paper stars hanging from the ceiling. A small manger we built from wood scraps. It wasn't much, but it was ours. We walked home together as a family. The night was cool. The stars were out. Everything seemed peaceful. We ate a simple dinner. Rice and stew. The children were excited about Christmas. Emmanuel asked if we'd have chicken for Christmas dinner. I told him yes, we'll have chicken. We always tried to have something special for Christmas. After dinner, we prayed together as a family. We always did this before bed. Each person would pray. Emmanuel thanked God for his family and asked God to bless Pastor Joshua. Mercy prayed for her friends at school. David prayed that God would give him a bicycle for Christmas. When it was my turn, I prayed for protection. I didn't know why. The word just came out. Lord, protect this family. Cover us with your blood. Keep us safe from evil. Grace looked at me when I finished. She could tell something was bothering me. Are you okay? She asked. I'm fine, I said. Just tired. We went to bed. I fell asleep around 10 p.m. At 11:47 p.m., I woke up to the sound of motorcycles. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard the gunshots. Rapid. Continuous. Getting closer. I jumped out of bed. Grace was already awake. She grabbed my arm. What's happening? She whispered. I didn't answer. I ran to the window and looked out. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. Motorcycles. Everywhere. Maybe 30, maybe 40, I couldn't count. Men dressed in dark clothing, faces covered with scarves, carrying guns, machetes, torches. They were going house to house. Systematically. Like a military operation. I saw Mr. Peter's house explode in flames. He was our neighbor, a retired schoolteacher, 65 years old. He ran out of his burning house, his clothes on fire, screaming for help. They shot him. Just like that. He fell face first into the dirt and didn't move again. Get the children, I told Grace. We need to hide. Where? She asked. Her voice was shaking. I don't know. Just get them. Now. She ran to the children's room. I could hear her waking them, trying to keep her voice calm even though I knew she was terrified. Come, quickly, she was saying. Don't make noise. Just come with Mama. I was looking around our small house, trying to find somewhere, anywhere to hide. Under the bed? No, they'd find us. In the ceiling? We didn't have ceiling access. The bathroom? Too obvious. There was nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Then I heard them. Right outside our house. Loud voices shouting in Arabic and Hausa. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Bring out the infidels. Come out or we burn you alive. Grace ran back into the room with the children. Emmanuel was trying to be brave. Mercy was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. David was shaking, his whole body trembling like he was cold. What do we do? Grace whispered. I didn't have an answer. I was supposed to be the man, the protector, the father. And I had no answer. Hide in the back room, I said. Under the bed. Don't come out no matter what you hear. But Papa, Emmanuel said. No, I cut him off. Do what I say. Protect your brother and sister. Grace looked at me. She knew what I was thinking. I was going to try to talk to them. To reason with them. To buy time. She grabbed my hand. Don't leave us, she said. I have to, I said. Then the door exploded inward. They'd kicked it off its hinges. The door, which I'd built with my own hands, which had protected my family for years, was now lying on the floor in pieces. 4 men rushed in. Young men, maybe in their early 20s. Eyes full of hate. One of them pointed his gun at me. Where are the others? He shouted. I raised my hands. Please, I said. Please, my family. We've done nothing wrong. Where are they? He shouted again. Grace screamed. She was still holding David. Mercy was clinging to her dress. Emmanuel stood in front of his mother and siblings, his small body trying to shield them. The man walked over and slapped Emmanuel across the face. Hard. My 12-year-old son fell to the ground. Something inside me broke. I lunged forward. Before I could reach the man, another militant hit me with the butt of his rifle. I fell. Tasted blood in my mouth. I felt a sharp pain in my ribs. Get up, he said. Get up, Kaffir. Infidel. He dragged me to my feet. The other militants grabbed Grace and the children. They pulled us all outside. The village was chaotic. Flames everywhere. People running, screaming. Gunshots echoing through the night. Bodies lying in the streets. I recognized some of them. Sister Mary, who sold fruits at the market. Brother Thomas, who led the youth group. The Okafor family, all 5 of them, lying together in front of their burning house. They lined us up in the center of the village. About 20-30 of us. All Christians. Men, women, children, elderly. Some people were bleeding. Some were crying. Some were praying. The militants surrounded us. I counted at least 15 of them. All armed. All young. All ready to kill. Their leader, the one with the scar on his face, stepped forward. He was the one I saw clearly. The one I'll never forget. He looked at all of us with disgust. Like we were less than human. Tonight, he said in Hausa, tonight we cleanse this land of infidels. You Christians, you think you can live in Muslim land? You think you can build your churches here? You think you can spread your lies about Jesus? No more. Tonight you have a choice. Accept Islam. Say the Shahida. Become one of us. Or die. It's simple. He walked down the line, looking at each person. When he reached an elderly man, Brother Samuel, he stopped. Brother Samuel was maybe 70 years old. He'd been a Christian his whole life. A gentle man. A kind man. Say it, the militant said. Say there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. Brother Samuel looked at him. His eyes were calm. Peaceful. Even facing death, he had peace. I worship Jesus Christ, he said quietly. The Son of the living God. The militant didn't hesitate. He raised his machete and brought it down. I won't describe what happened next. I can't. Some images, once you see them, they never leave. They're burned into your mind forever. Grace screamed. So did many others. The children were crying. The militants laughed. Next, the leader said. He moved to a woman. Sister Ruth. She was maybe 35. A widow. Her husband had died 3 years ago from illness. She had 2 children with her. Please, she begged. Please, my children. They're innocent. Say it, he said. I believe in Jesus, she whispered. He shot her. Right there. In front of her children. The 2 kids, a boy and a girl, collapsed on their mother's body, screaming, shaking her, begging her to wake up. The militants pulled them away. We will raise them as Muslims, the leader said. They will forget their mother. They will forget her false god. He continued down the line. One by one, he asked. One by one, people answered. Some converted. I won't judge them. I can't judge them. Fear makes people do things they never thought they'd do. When you're staring death in the face, when your children are watching, when there seems to be no hope, I understand why some people said the words. God understands too. But many didn't. Many stood firm. And many died. Pastor Joshua, they brought him out last. They'd already burned the church. He was covered in burns. His clothes were half burned off. But he was alive. Barely. They threw him on the ground in front of all of us. This one, the leader said, is special. He's their leader. Their pastor. Let's see if his God saves him. They beat him. I won't go into details. It went on for 10 minutes. Maybe more. Pastor Joshua never cried out. Never begged. Never cursed them. Instead, he prayed. Father, forgive them, he said. They don't know what they're doing. Those were his last words. Father, forgive them. They shot him. Then they shot him again. And again. Until there was no doubt. I closed my eyes. I couldn't watch anymore. But I could hear. I could hear everything. Then it was my turn. The leader stood in front of me. He looked at my family. 3 children, he said. Nice family. It would be a shame to orphan them. Are you Christian? The moment I told you about at the beginning. This was it. The gun against my forehead. The choice. The question. Yes, I said. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. And if you kill me tonight, I will wake up in His presence. He smiled. That hunter's smile. Then you and your family die together. He turned the gun toward Emmanuel. My 12-year-old son. Grace screamed. That scream. That sound. It still haunts me. No, please, no, take me, kill me, not my children, please God, please. And then, right then, at that exact moment, something happened. A light. I know how this sounds. I know people will say I imagined it. That it was the shock, the trauma, the fear. But I know what I saw. A light appeared. Bright. Blinding. It didn't come from a flashlight or a torch. It came from above, from the sky, from everywhere and nowhere. The militants jumped back. What is this? The leader shouted. His voice wasn't confident anymore. He sounded afraid. The light was so bright I had to close my eyes. And then I heard sounds. Vehicles. Multiple vehicles. Coming fast. Someone shouted. Soldiers. It's the military. Run. Run. The militants scattered immediately. Like rats. One moment they were ready to execute us, the next moment they were running for their lives, jumping on their motorcycles, fleeing into the darkness. The light disappeared as quickly as it had come. Everything went dark again. Just the flames from burning houses providing any visibility. Grace collapsed. She was still holding David. I ran to her. Are you hurt? Are you okay? She couldn't speak. She was in shock. We all were. Emmanuel helped me get her to her feet. Mercy was clutching my leg, refusing to let go. Military trucks rolled into the village. Soldiers jumped out, guns ready. But the militants were gone. Vanished into the night. A soldier approached me. Are you okay? He asked. No, I wanted to say. None of us are okay. None of us will ever be okay again. But I just nodded. How many casualties? The soldier asked. I looked around. Bodies everywhere. So many bodies. I don't know, I said. Too many. The soldier's face was grim. I'm sorry we didn't get here sooner. We received the distress call, but he trailed off. But what? I thought. But you were too late? But you didn't care? But Christian lives don't matter in a Muslim state. I didn't say any of this. What was the point? Later, we would learn the full extent of the massacre. 62 people from our village were killed that night. 62. Brother Samuel. Sister Ruth. Pastor Joshua. The Okafor family. The Adebayo family. The Peters family. People I'd known my whole life. People I'd worshipped with. People I'd farmed with. All gone in one night. Another 43 people were missing. We would later learn they'd been kidnapped. Taken into the forest. Held for ransom. The militants demanded money for their release. Some families sold everything they had. Their land. Their livestock. Their houses. Just to get their loved ones back. Some couldn't afford the ransom. Those hostages remained in captivity. One of them was Sister Grace, no relation to my wife. She was held for 28 days. When she was finally released after her family scraped together the ransom, she told us what happened. They beat us daily, she said. They forced us to work. The men had to clear farmland. The women had to cook and clean for them. They tried to convert us. Every day, they would preach Islam. They would tell us Christianity was a lie. They would mock Jesus. One young man, Brother Daniel, was maybe 19 years old. They told him to renounce Christ. He refused. They told him they would kill him if he didn't convert. He still refused. They beheaded him in front of all the hostages. As a warning. As a message. 2 other hostages died from untreated injuries. The militants wouldn't give them medical care. They just let them suffer until they died. When Sister Grace finished telling us this, she broke down. She couldn't continue. The trauma was too much. Many of the released hostages never recovered mentally. Some lost their minds. Some tried to take their own lives. The scars of that night went deeper than any physical wound. We couldn't stay in the village. It wasn't safe. The militants had promised to return. And we believed them. So we ran. Me, Grace, our 3 children, and about 40 other survivors. We left everything behind. Our home. Our farm. Our entire lives. Everything I'd worked for. Everything my father had left me. Everything I'd hoped to pass to my children. Gone. We walked through the bush for 2 days. We only moved at night because we were afraid the militants were watching the roads. During the day, we hid in the forest. No food. No clean water. No shelter. My children's feet were bleeding from thorns and rough ground. Emmanuel was trying to be strong. He barely complained even though I could see him limping. Mercy cried herself to sleep every time we rested. David, he stopped talking completely. He hadn't said a word since the attack. He would just stare into nothing, unresponsive. Grace was carrying David on her back most of the time, even though her own legs could barely hold her. I tried to take him from her, but she wouldn't let go. She needed to hold him. To know he was still alive. On the second night, David developed a fever. High. Burning. Dangerous. His little body was shaking. His lips were dry and cracked. We had no medicine. No doctor. Nothing. Grace was frantic. He's dying, she kept saying. Samuel, our baby is dying. I laid my hands on David's forehead. It was burning hot. I prayed. Not a fancy prayer. Not a theological prayer. Just a desperate father's prayer. Lord Jesus, you healed the sick. You raised the dead. You said if we have faith even as small as a mustard seed, we can move mountains. I don't have much faith right now. I'm angry. I'm confused. I don't understand why you let this happen. But please, I'm begging you, don't let my son die in this forest. Please. We kept walking. David was barely conscious. By morning, we reached a checkpoint. Military personnel. They saw our condition and called for medical help. A medic checked David. His fever had broken. Completely. The medic was surprised. This boy should be in critical condition, he said. But he's going to be fine. I looked at Grace. We both knew. God had answered. Even when I was angry with him. Even when I doubted. He still answered. The military escorted us to a displacement camp in Abuja, the capital. When I say camp, I need you to understand what I mean. This wasn't a refugee camp with proper facilities. This was an open field with makeshift shelters. Tarps held up by sticks. No walls. No privacy. No sanitation. 6,000 people were living in that camp. 6,000 displaced Christians from various attacks across northern Nigeria. We were given one corner of a large tarp. That was our home. 7 of us, my family and 2 other families we'd escaped with, we all shared that space. About 15 people under one tarp. No beds. We slept on the ground. No mosquito nets. Malaria was rampant. No toilets. There were maybe 10 pit latrines for the entire camp. The smell was unbearable. The conditions were worse than anything I could have imagined. We stood in line for hours just to get food. The government had promised to provide for us. Sometimes food came. Sometimes it didn't. When it did come, it was barely enough. A cup of rice and beans per person. Maybe once a day. Sometimes once every 2 days. My children were losing weight. They were wasting away before my eyes. There was no school. Emmanuel was supposed to be in secondary school. Instead, he spent his days sitting in the dirt, staring at nothing. All the trauma, all the fear, it had broken something inside him. Mercy would cry for her friends. The friends who had died. She kept asking me when we could go home. I didn't have an answer. David still wasn't speaking. We took him to a medical volunteer at the camp. The doctor said he was in severe trauma. He needs professional counseling, the doctor said. Therapy. Psychiatric care. I almost laughed. We could barely get food. Where would we get psychiatric care? Grace, my strong, faithful wife, she was falling apart. Every night, she would lie next to me and cry. Quietly, so the children wouldn't hear. But I heard. I heard everything. Her body would shake with silent sobs. She was reliving that night over and over. The screams. The blood. The moment the gun was pointed at Emmanuel. It was destroying her from the inside. And I didn't know how to help her. I couldn't even help myself. At night, the camp was filled with sounds. Nightmares. People screaming in their sleep. Children waking up terrified. Adults reliving their own attacks. One man, he would wake up every night screaming, they're coming, run, run. It would wake up half the camp. No one got angry at him. We all understood. We were all living the same nightmare. I saw men, strong men, men who used to be farmers, businessmen, providers for their families, reduced to beggars. Sitting in the dirt with empty eyes. Broken. Defeated. Some had lost everything. Not just their homes and livelihoods. They'd lost their wives, their children, their entire families. What do you have left when everything is taken from you? I started to ask God questions. Hard questions. Angry questions. Why? Why did you save us only to bring us here? Why did you spare us from bullets just to let us die slowly in this camp? Why did Pastor Joshua have to die? He was a good man. He served you faithfully. And you let them burn him alive. Where were you? Where were you when they were killing children? Where were you when they were raping women? Where were you when they were burning churches? I know I shouldn't have asked these questions. I know I should have had more faith. But I was broken. I was empty. I was angry. For weeks, I heard nothing from God. Just silence. The silence was worse than the attacks. At least during the attack, I could pray and feel like someone was listening. Now, it felt like I was praying into a void. Like God had abandoned us. Like we were alone. But then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, things started to change. It was a Sunday morning. We had no church building in the camp. But about 50 of us would gather under a large tree. No instruments. No sound system. No offering basket. Just us and God. That morning, a young woman stood up to testify. Her name was Ruth. Not the sister Ruth who had been killed, a different Ruth. This Ruth had been kidnapped by the militants. She'd been held for 3 weeks. During those 3 weeks, she was assaulted, tortured, beaten. Her husband and her 10-year-old son had been killed during the initial attack. She was finally released after her extended family pooled money together for ransom. When she stood up to speak, I expected her to be broken, to be angry, to have given up on God. Instead, she said this: "They took everything from me. My husband. My son. My dignity. My home. Everything. They thought they broke me. They thought they destroyed my faith. But I want you to know something. I want you to understand this. I am not broken. Because the one who lives in me is greater than the one who is in this world. They can kill my body, but they cannot touch my soul. They can take my family, but they cannot separate me from the love of Christ. They can destroy my house, but they cannot destroy my faith. I am still here. And as long as I'm breathing, I will worship Jesus Christ." Then she began to sing. No music. Just her voice, clear and strong. It is well with my soul." One by one, we joined her. 50 voices became one voice. We sang through tears. We sang through pain. We sang through anger and confusion and grief. We sang because we had nothing else. We sang because worship was the only weapon we had left. And in that moment, I felt something break inside me. Not a bad break. A necessary break. Like a dam bursting. All the anger, all the fear, all the bitterness I'd been holding came pouring out. I wept. Right there under that tree, surrounded by people who'd lost just as much as I had, I wept like a child. Not from sadness alone, from relief. Because I finally understood something. God hadn't abandoned us. He'd been there all along. He was there in the light that appeared when we were about to be executed. He was there when David's fever broke in the forest. He was there in the military arriving just in time. He was there in Ruth's voice singing about a peace that passes understanding. He was there. He is here. And he will never leave us. I made a decision that day. I decided that no matter what happened, no matter how long we stayed in that camp, no matter how much we'd lost, I would not let the militants win. They'd taken our homes. They'd taken our livelihoods. They'd taken our sense of security. But they couldn't take our faith. Not unless we let them. And I refused to let them. Slowly, things began to improve. Not in the camp itself, conditions stayed terrible. But in our spirits. In our hope. A Christian organization called Open Doors International came to the camp. They brought more than just food and supplies. They brought counseling. They brought trauma therapy. They brought hope. Grace started attending counseling sessions for women who'd experienced trauma. At first, she didn't want to go. I don't need to talk about it, she said. Talking won't change what happened. But I encouraged her. Please, I said. For me. For the children. Try. She went. And slowly, over weeks and months, I saw my wife coming back to life. The light that had gone out of her eyes, it started to return. She started smiling again. Not often, but sometimes. She started singing again while she cooked. She started being present with the children instead of just staring into nothing. David, our youngest, he still wasn't speaking. A trauma counselor worked with him. Using play therapy, art therapy, just sitting with him. After 2 months, he said his first words since the attack. Mama. Just that one word. Grace broke down crying. She held him and cried and thanked God. Within another month, David was speaking again. Not as much as before. He was quieter now, more reserved. But he was speaking. Emmanuel started going to a makeshift school that volunteers had set up in the camp. They didn't have proper buildings or materials, but they tried to give the children some sense of normalcy. Some sense of the future. Emmanuel also started learning carpentry from one of the men in the camp. A man named Brother Paul who used to be a furniture maker before his workshop was burned down. I watched my son learning to work with wood, creating things with his hands, and I saw purpose returning to his eyes. One day he told me, Papa, when we leave this place, I want to rebuild churches. I want to rebuild what they destroyed. I looked at my 12-year-old son, who'd had a gun pointed at his head, who'd watched people die, who'd lost everything, and he was talking about rebuilding. That's when I knew. The enemy hadn't won. They'd tried to destroy us, but instead they'd refined us. Like gold in fire. Mercy found friends in the camp. Other girls her age who'd been through similar experiences. They would play together, share stories, and encourage each other. Children are resilient in ways adults aren't. They find joy in the smallest things. I'd see Mercy laughing with her friends and it would fill my heart with gratitude. Grace found work with a local ministry that came to the camp. They were helping displaced women learn skills, sewing, baking, and small business management. Grace had always been good with her hands. She started sewing clothes for people in the camp. It wasn't much money, but it was something. It gave her dignity. It gave her purpose. As for me, I met with a pastor who ran a trauma healing program specifically for men. His name was Pastor David. He'd been displaced from Kaduna State years earlier. He understood what we were going through because he'd lived it. He helped me work through the anger, the fear, the guilt, the survivor's guilt. Why did I live when so many others died? Why was my family spared when entire families were wiped out? Why Emmanuel and not the Okafor children? Why David and not Brother Samuel's grandchildren? Pastor David told me something I'll never forget. He said, "Samuel, God didn't save you by accident. God didn't spare your life so you could waste it feeling guilty. He saved you because your story needs to be told. Your testimony will give others hope. Your survival has purpose. Don't dishonor those who died by refusing to live fully. Honor them by living well. By telling their stories. By making sure the world doesn't forget." After 8 months in the camp, an opportunity came. A Christian organization that helps persecuted believers was offering to relocate some families to other countries. Countries where we could be safe. Where we could rebuild our lives. Where our children could go to proper schools. Where we wouldn't have to live in fear. Grace and I discussed it. It wasn't an easy decision. Nigeria is our home. Our ancestors are buried there. Our language, our culture, our identity, it's all tied to that land. Leaving felt like admitting defeat. Like letting the terrorists win. But we had to think about our children. What kind of future did they have in Nigeria? Even if we left the camp, where would we go? Back to the village? It was destroyed. To another part of the north? We'd still be targets. To the south? We had no family there, no resources, no way to start over. We applied for the relocation program. We waited. Months passed. Then one day, we got the news. Our application had been approved. We were going to Ghana. Ghana, a peaceful country. A predominantly Christian country in West Africa. A place where we could worship freely without fear. Where our children could walk to school without wondering if today would be the day they'd be attacked. Where Grace could sleep through the night without waking up screaming. We left the camp with mixed emotions. Relief, yes. Gratitude, absolutely. But also sadness. We were leaving behind people who'd become like family. People who'd suffered with us. People who were still waiting, still hoping, still praying for their own miracle. The day we left, Ruth, the woman who'd sung under the tree, came to say goodbye. She hugged Grace and said, "Tell the world about us. Tell them we're still here. Tell them we need prayer. Tell them we need help. Tell them not to forget." I promised her I would. We flew to Ghana in November 2024. When we landed in Accra, I kissed the ground. My children looked at me like I was crazy. But I didn't care. We were safe. For the first time in almost a year, we were safe. The organization helped us settle in a small town outside Accra. They provided a house, simple but clean. 2 bedrooms. Running water. Electricity that actually worked. A toilet inside the house, not a pit latrine shared by thousands. To us, it felt like a palace. They helped Emmanuel and Mercy enroll in school. Real school with real teachers and real books. They helped me find work. I started working on a farm again. The work was different from what I'd done in Nigeria, but it felt good to have dirt under my fingernails again. To be productive. To provide for my family. Grace started a small sewing business. She makes clothes for people in our neighborhood. She's building a reputation. People are starting to know her as the woman who makes beautiful dresses. David started kindergarten. He's still quieter than he used to be. He still has nightmares. But he's healing. Slowly, day by day, he's healing. We found a church. A small Pentecostal church that reminds us of home. The first Sunday we attended, when we started singing, I broke down. I couldn't help it. I was standing in a church, worshiping freely, with my whole family alive beside me. How many people from my village could say that? How many families were still complete? We were the exception, not the rule. I started sharing my testimony. First at our church. Then at other churches. Every time I tell this story, it gets harder and easier at the same time. Harder because I have to relive it. I have to see those images again. I have to feel that fear again. But easier because I see what it does to people. I see how it strengthens their faith. I see how it reminds them to be grateful. I see how it mobilizes them to action. 6 months ago, I spoke at a conference for displaced Christians from various African countries. 200 people in the room. Nigeria, Sudan, Mali, Burkina Faso, Mozambique, all these countries where Christians are being killed for their faith. When I finished sharing, a man approached me. He was from Sudan. His entire family had been killed. His wife, his 4 children, his parents, all of them massacred. He was the only survivor. He told me he'd been planning to take his own life. He'd lost hope. He'd lost faith. He couldn't see any reason to continue living. But hearing my story, he said, gave him hope. If God saved you, he said, maybe God still has plans for me too. Maybe my story isn't over. Maybe there's still purpose in my pain. We prayed together. We cried together. 2 men from different countries, different tribes, different languages, but united by suffering and by faith. That's when I understood. This is why God saved me. Not because I'm special. Not because I'm more righteous than those who died. But because He wants to use my story. He wants to use my testimony. He wants the world to know that He's still in the business of miracles. That He still delivers. That He still protects. That He still fights for His people. My name is Samuel Adeyemi. I am a survivor. I am a witness. I am a testimony to the faithfulness of God. But I'm not here just to tell you my story. I'm here to tell you about thousands of others who are still suffering. Right now, as I speak to you, Christians in northern Nigeria are being attacked. Villages are being burned. Churches are being destroyed. Children are being orphaned. Women are being widowed. Families are being torn apart. And the world is silent. Did you know that in 2024 alone, over 7,000 Christians were killed in Nigeria? 7,000. That's an average of 19 people every single day. 19 people who woke up in the morning, went about their lives, and by nightfall were dead because they refused to deny Jesus Christ. Did you know that hundreds of churches have been destroyed in the past 5 years? Churches that took years to build, wiped out in minutes. Did you know that thousands of children have been orphaned? Thousands of women have been widowed? Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced from their homes? Did you know that young girls are being kidnapped and forced to convert to Islam? That boys are being recruited as child soldiers? That entire Christian communities are being systematically erased? This isn't ancient history. This isn't something that happened centuries ago during the Crusades or the Roman persecution. This is happening now. Today. While you're watching this. While you're comfortable in your home. While you're free to worship without fear. Someone in Nigeria is hiding in the bush, running for their life, wondering if they'll see tomorrow. And it's not just Nigeria. Across sub-Saharan Africa, Christians are being targeted. In Mali, Islamic extremists have taken over entire regions, forcing Christians to flee or convert. In Burkina Faso, churches are being burned weekly. In Sudan, Christians face daily persecution from the government and militant groups. In Mozambique, entire villages have been massacred. In Somalia, being Christian is essentially a death sentence. The persecution is real. The suffering is immense. And the world doesn't seem to care. So I'm asking you, what are you going to do about it? I'm not asking rhetorically. I'm genuinely asking. What are you going to do? Are you going to watch this testimony, feel emotional for a few minutes, maybe shed a tear, and then go back to your comfortable life and forget about us? Or are you going to do something? Let me be very specific about what you can do. First, pray. And I don't mean just say you'll pray. I don't mean just add us to your prayer list and forget about it. I mean actually, intentionally, consistently pray. Set a reminder on your phone. Every single day at the same time, stop what you're doing and pray for Nigerian Christians. Pray for protection. Pray for the militants to have a change of heart. Pray for the government to take action. Pray for the international community to pay attention. Pray for the displaced families living in camps. Pray for the orphans. Pray for the widows. Pray for the traumatized children. Pray for the pastors who are leading their congregations under threat of death. Pray specifically. Pray fervently. Pray like their lives depend on it, because they do. Prayer is not passive. Prayer is warfare. When you pray, you're engaging in the battle. You're pushing back darkness. You're inviting God to intervene. Don't underestimate the power of your prayers. Second, speak up. Share our stories. Post about us on social media. Talk about us in your churches. Write to your government representatives. Demand that they pay attention. Demand that they take action. Demand that they put pressure on the Nigerian government to protect its Christian citizens. The reason this persecution continues is partly because the world is silent. When nobody's watching, when nobody's talking about it, when nobody cares, it's easy for governments to ignore the problem. But when people start speaking up, when the international community starts paying attention, it creates pressure for change. Your voice matters. Use it. Share this testimony. Tag your friends. Start conversations. Don't let the world forget about us. Don't let our suffering be invisible. Third, give financially. There are organizations working on the ground to help persecuted Christians. Organizations like Open Doors International, Voice of the Martyrs, International Christian Concern, Barnabas Fund, Release International. These organizations are providing emergency relief, trauma counseling, education for displaced children, livelihood support, legal assistance, safe houses for people fleeing persecution. But they need resources. They need funding. If you can afford your morning coffee, you can afford to donate something. Even small amounts, when combined with others, make a huge difference. $5 can feed a family for a day in a displacement camp. $25 can provide school supplies for a displaced child. $100 can provide trauma counseling. $500 can help a family relocate to safety. Whatever you can give, give it. Don't wait. Don't think someone else will do it. You do it. Fourth, advocate. If you're in a position of influence, use it. If you're a pastor, preach about the persecuted church. If you're a journalist, write about us. If you're a politician, raise our issues in Parliament or Congress. If you're a business owner, consider hiring displaced Christians or supporting businesses run by survivors. If you're a teacher, educate your students about global persecution. Use whatever platform you have to amplify our voices. We can't speak for ourselves because we're too busy surviving. We need you to speak for us. Fifth, remember. This is perhaps the simplest but most important thing. Just remember. When you're sitting comfortably in your church this Sunday, worshiping freely, singing loudly, raising your hands without fear, remember that somewhere in northern Nigeria, a Christian is gathering in secret, whispering their worship, looking over their shoulder, wondering if today is the day the militants will find them. When you're complaining about your pastor's sermon being too long or the worship songs being too loud or the air conditioning not working properly, remember that some Christians are meeting under a tree with no building, no instruments, no comfort, just grateful to be alive. When you're annoyed that you have to drive 15 minutes to church, remember that some Christians have to walk hours through dangerous territory just to fellowship with other believers. When you're taking your faith for granted, remember those who died rather than deny it. Let their sacrifice mean something. Let their blood not be spilled in vain. Let their testimony challenge you to live more boldly, believe more deeply, worship more genuinely. And finally, prepare yourself. Because persecution is not limited to Nigeria or Africa. It's spreading. In many parts of the world, Christians are facing increasing hostility. Laws are being passed that restrict religious freedom. Christians are being fired from jobs for their beliefs. Students are being expelled from universities for their convictions. Business owners are being sued for living according to their faith. The pressure is mounting globally. What's happening in Nigeria today could be coming to your country tomorrow. So strengthen your faith now. Decide now what you believe and why you believe it. Decide now whether you're willing to stand firm when the pressure comes. Decide now if Jesus is worth losing everything for. Because that day might come. And when it does, I pray you'll have the courage that Pastor Joshua had. The courage that Brother Samuel had. The courage that Sister Ruth had. The courage to say, even if he kills me, I will still worship him. My story didn't end in that village on December 23, 2023. God had other plans. But thousands of stories did end that night and on countless other nights like it. For them, I tell this story. For those who can no longer speak, I speak. For those whose voices were silenced, I raise my voice. For those who died believing, I live believing. This is my testimony. This is our testimony. This is the testimony of the persecuted church. We are still here. We are still standing. We are still worshiping. And we will continue until Jesus returns or until our last breath. Whatever comes first. To God alone be all the glory. Amen.